Hey everybody, my name is Jeff Aldridge. I'm here with Andrew Ayers from Stage Culture. What's up, man?
Hey, how are you, Jeff?
Good, man. Good. So today we're here to talk about what I think everybody needs to hear, and that's the process of when you come across the need to install professional audio, video, and lighting materials. And Andrew here is a longtime veteran. Could you give us some background of your business or your
Yeah, so I
expertise?
started the business about 11 years ago. It was kind of a part-time thing when I was in full-time ministry. And I did a couple projects a year, fast forward a few years, and spent some time working with Walt Disney Company and Universal. And we had the opportunity to move back to Jacksonville. And so at that time, I decided that I would make it a part-time venture to a full-time venture, and we've been full-time here in Jacksonville for about 7 years. We're a full audio, video, lighting, design build company, technically based out of Green Cove Springs, and yeah, we stay pretty busy.
I would say I agree. Your schedule's pretty busy. It's been difficult to find a time where we both have time where we can meet to do this, but we both feel that's really important. So, leading up to if you need a professional audio, video, or lighting installation of any degree, it's always the best to get in contact with somebody that can integrate it because what that person does is ensures that your project's going to be successful. That's probably our complete end goal at every project that we go into. Why do so many people misunderstand what AVL integrators actually are?
So I think there's a misconception between maybe an integrator and an installer, and if you put it into a sense of construction, it's the kind of the difference between an architect, and the guy that's actually building the building. On the integration side, we're going to look at your room, your pre-existing systems, all the things that you already have, and we're going to figure out how to best work within the systems that you have. And then on the other side of it, the installer is the person actually doing the work. So on the integration side, it would be our goal to be able to to integrate your current systems with your new system that you're looking at.
I would say on the outside, if you were to shorten that, an installer is somebody that says, hey, here's all the instructions for what you have to do and how much would it cost. I think that's where it kind of varies with integrators too, is because integrators are, here's this project, work with me as a team we can get this together, which takes an integrator's time, like Andrew's. And so the price would vary if I said, hey, Andrew, here is a full script of how you got to do things, from where you got to plug it in, what you have to solder. It's called a scope of work, right? And so that scope of work is defined already. He doesn't have to come up with his own scope of work to actually integrate the stuff that has been used to design the project, if that makes sense, right?
Absolutely, yeah, that's right, absolutely.
Why do most professional AV work, why does it seem more than just, is it more than just hanging speakers? Because, we have some people that can go out and select what they want to put in the room, but what makes your work different than that?
Yeah, so it's really important to know what the vision is, especially in the ministry world. What style music, what are we looking to accomplish, and kind of where that starts. That's really where that conversation starts. Is what's your style? What are you looking to achieve? And then the next step would be is that we would look to make sure that we put the right product in the room. It's always the goal to get even coverage all the way across the room. When it comes to audio specifically, and so we would want to make sure that we don't put too many boxes in, and we don't, or on the flip side, we don't shortchange the system. And so making sure that that the correct system is put in the room for what is needed.
Well, another thing too, Andrew, I know you very well to some degree, and you take pride in what you do too, right? So you don't want to go, hey, who did this install? And one of your subordinates or something like that, or someone equal in the industry, is like, Stage Culture did that? Like, this sounds horrible. I think it's important that, and what Andrew said is that everybody needs to have the same experience in the room. And so there has to be even coverage. But I will tell you that, I can go out and buy all the ingredients to make a beef Wellington, but there's more than just the ingredients. There's more than just putting it together. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what extra things you do? Like we talked about putting the right thing in there, but what happens after the install?
Yeah. So I think, even to kind of back up even probably a little bit from that is knowing, knowing safety protocols, understanding code for different buildings and what you can and can't do. Yeah, I'm definitely not a structural engineer, but being able to understand kind of what you can and can't do, and when you need to bring in somebody, that can tell you, hey, it's okay to hang 1,200 pounds from this area of the building, or it's not,
and it's safe.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
And so I mean, there's definitely a lot of kind of hands in the cookie jar, if you will, to make sure that that at the end of the day that it sounds good, that it looks good, and that it's safe.
Another thing too, we're kind of leading to another topic here, is it's always, when it comes to professional projects like this, the first conversation is a consultation, and they get the information that you need. And the most common expectations for clients are at the beginning of the project, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to be able, Andrew and I, we have to listen to what their expectations are and then interpret that with the product and the services that they need. What are early signs that tell you whether the relationship is a good partnership for you?
So I think clear communication, understanding what the client wants from you and what you need from the client. We rarely run into a client that we don't feel like is a good fit. It has happened, but most people understand what it is that they're trying to achieve, and then and if there is a gap there, it would be our job to help you understand like where the downfalls may be within the system, and then we can make the changes in order to make sure that doesn't happen.
One of the common things that we come across all the times is, hey, I need 3 bids.
Yeah.
And the 3 bids things, we understand why you need that, because that's how a lot of other businesses do things. That's how the government runs. But Andrew and I are here to advise you that it's kind of like dating. You need to establish some type of partnership to where the end goal is something that you both celebrate, and that's where success is, right? You don't want to go into a project and then the customer not be successful at the end of it. So it's important to, find someone like Andrew that not only provides the installation, the know-how, and the expertise on what is right for code and whatnot, but you have someone that you can trust and that you can contact. He's not someone in a call center. I'm not someone in a call center. So those type of people are important to have relationships with, and then that relationship just continues. You get referrals, you get all these continued projects, and you have what I believe is just less stress, right? Because you know someone that's in it with you, and you're not just in it by yourself.
Yeah,
right?
We understand that there's a lot of organizations out there that have to do the that have to do the 3 bids, and one of the ways that we help in that process is that our bidding process is extremely transparent. We use special software that shows you a picture of the product, a description of the product, and the price of the product. And so there's a lot of companies out there that will just throw you one number and say we can do the project for for $100,000, but you don't know how they got there. And so one of the things that we do is that we're able to line item, and we're able to help explain line by line what everything is. And in the situations where you have to have 3 bids, because of that, we, in some situations on larger projects, we actually have to charge some kind of design fee, because in certain situations, that project may end up taking 40, 60, 80, 100 man hours to just do the design work. And so, it really depends on your project and kind of what you're looking to achieve.
Many people believe that the 3 bid process is what they need to do for every project, but what kind of problems do you see that creating for yourself?
Yeah. And it's, this is something that's, that is something that we've been a part of, but, if you're calling the same 3 people every time, there's always going to be 2 people that are not going to get the bid. And so a lot of times, you can keep making those phone calls, but we've run into situations before with other clients where they've reached out to other vendors for bids, and unfortunately the vendor at some point kind of catches on to what's happening, and a lot of times they decide to not work with that client. What we've done in some situations to help with that is that we'll give the client 3 different bids. And, once again, it depends on the size of the project, but, we can give you like a good, better, best option, to be able to show the client that we've done our due diligence to make sure that you are, that you have all the options in front of you. But that's definitely a, kind of a complicated scenario when you get into the process of having to get 3 different bids.
I would say another thing too, man, is that having 3 different bids and 3 different vendors give you 3 different angles to a project can be quite confusing for someone that doesn't know anything about the audio, video, lighting world. And, you're kind of picking between apples and oranges, but you don't know if you like one or the other. And somebody might come in with something else and be completely trash. The equipment is not up to the standard of others, and if you don't know that, that would be a reason why there would be a price difference. Why is it important to create a partnership versus a transaction, would you say?
Yeah, I think, for us, when we have people that have that have reached out to us and that we've spent time building that relationship, that enables us to be able to do things for that client that we can't do for others. And sometimes that's, Sunday morning support at 7 a.m. Sometimes that's sending a guy over when something's technically out of warranty and just, making sure that they're taken care of. It's the relationship is very much an investment on both sides. We have clients we've worked with for over a decade, and they trust us and we trust them. And so when you have that relationship, there's been many a times that we've donated things, we've given things, we've kind of stepped out of the standard. This is just a business transaction scenario, and we have gone alongside them as more of a partner and less of a vendor. And so when we're able to invest that way, I think it ends up being a better product all the way around for everybody.
Yeah, their success is important to you, and
absolutely,
that's important to me too. Why do professional system designs require time, expertise, and specialized knowledge?
Yeah, so there's just a lot of physics and a lot of science into what we do. I've been in the industry since I was, professionally in the industry for close to 20 years. And I've been in the industry, either as a volunteer or as, somebody that's that's kind of jumped in on the church side since I was probably 11 years old. I just turned 40. So
happy birthday.
Thank you. If that, so I've roughly been in and around the industry for 30 years. There's always, technology's always changing. You have to keep up with that. And so there's a lot of time and energy and learning. And so great example with sound system design, there's very specific software and in most situations the room has to be modeled. You have to understand the physics of that and how to bring the real room into the virtual room, and then how do you choose your speaker selection. And there's many vendors out there, there's many manufacturers out there, and so understanding once again the style and kind of what the client wants to achieve, there's just a lot of time and energy in order to make sure the end product is what it's supposed to be.
Why do some integrators charge a design fee?
I mean, that's to cover the overhead. That the process that we just talked about, depending on the size of the project, when you get into audio, video, lighting, there's just a lot of man hours there. Especially we've got a couple of new construction projects that we're working on now, and so we start the conversation with the architect. And so there's hours of meetings, there's hours of design, there's hours of site visits that have to be accomplished in order for the end product to be what it's supposed to be. And so in some situations, we could have 200 man hours, invested in just a design before there's any monetary transaction whatsoever. And so once again, depending on the project, sometimes it's necessary to do that.
Well, you have to perfect your time. Your time is valuable. So what are some risks that you think customers come across when they expect a design for free?
I think in some situations the integrator may not put as much time into it. I mean, that's not something that we would do, but I've seen situations where people have just thrown things on a page. There's been situations that we've been brought into a project kind of halfway through, and they said, "Hey, this is not working. We need somebody to come in and help us." And they had already been working with somebody, and so we'll come in to help, and we'll start the conversation by where are you in the process? What have you already purchased? And in a lot of situations, things were just kind of thrown on the paper in order to meet the budget, but there was no real sense of design or forethought into why that's there. And
to me, I think a design fee means that they're serious. I think if you put a design fee up there and they put the money towards paying for you to design something, they're not going to want to invest in someone else wanting to pay them to create a system for them. So it kind of locks you in, I think. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people out there that will take multiple bids with one person's design. And I guess that's kind of fine. It kind of hurts in a lot of ways because we put a lot of passion into our work. And so to lose something and to design something and then not have it come to fruition with your hands, that's a hard loss there. But when it comes to money and time, you got your design fee locked in. So
yeah, and that's something too. I mean, that's a good point. That if they've paid, we've had multiple conversations recently there has been a design fee there, and in some situations, we're able to design that, and we document all that, and we hand over those documents to the client. And in some situations, there's actually portions of that the church can install themselves. And some of that kind of goes back to what's really the desire. And so because they've paid us for those documents, obviously we're gonna hand those over, but that does give them the ability to be able to install some of that on their own, but have really good kind of back end support with, hey, why is this done this way? And so, yeah, I mean, that can also be something that helps that organization on the budget side, is that, hey, we paid for all this information, we have all the information, and so now we're empowered to be able to, to possibly install some of this in order to save money.
What does proper AVL proposal usually include, would you say?
Yeah, so that just kind of that touches back to kind of what I mentioned earlier, is that for a proposal, it would be, there would be a photo and a description and a quantity and price, for a kind of and that's something that we can kind of talk about too, the difference between like a box sale and a design.
Yeah.
And so on a proposal on a box sale, so if somebody calls and said, hey, Andrew, I need 4 of these and 5 of these and 6 of these, we're going to put that on a proposal. You're going to see a picture, you're going to see the description and, price, and then, any kind of discounts. And then, but on a design, you would get all of that. Plus there would probably be some CAD work. There would be heat maps for PA. There would be, there would probably be a lighting plot. And so, there's quite a bit of work and labor and kind of paperwork that makes all that up.
Why would you say that the scope of work is so important?
So the scope of work helps the client, and it helps us to understand what everybody is responsible for. And in some situations, the client even has a scope of work. Great example, we're going to go in and hang some lights. Well, part of the scope may be that the client is, providing a lift, and the client is also maybe providing some truss that was taken out of another venue that we're going to use in this venue. And so it's a really good document, and it's a really good roadmap to help everybody understand what everybody's responsible for.
Also, when it comes time to the payment portion of everything and everybody's agreed upon, why is it important to take a 50% deposit for your installation?
So our deposit is the cost of the equipment. So it's, so it's not even 50%. Like, it would be the cost of the equipment, and then the labor would be due on the back end.
Well, I guess that would depend on whether you're just doing the integrator or you sell them the whole package.
Right.
So
yeah.
That's a different thing. Like you and I, we do business together. I have projects that I sell them 100% of everything, and then you come in on the back end and are partner with me, and you finish everything else, and you get paid for that. And so there is a difference there.
Right.
So the deposit would change. And most importantly, it's important to pay a deposit of some sort, though. One, it shows that you're serious. And two, the integrator doesn't have to put out their money to get your equipment purchased. So, and it's also a favor. For example, if you buy gear from me, it's not 50% upfront either. It's 100% upfront. And then, the integrators can change. So if Andrew came in, he would ask for 50% of what his cost was, which would be parts and, I'm sure, some labor into that too.
Right.
But it also, these guys, Andrew specifically, if they're successful like he is, they're not ready to do a project next week for you. Now, sometimes they can squeeze it in, hire subcontractors to get the job done, and he does that on a regular basis. But if you're putting on a big project, you can't just jump into a project. Speaking of that, I would also say that if you are approaching an integrator with a big list of gear and you want to know how much that cost, hey, my friend, that's a red flag to us in the industry, that you're just trying to shop the integrator, the partner that you should already have, for a lower price and to get them. You're not going to buy it from me. You want me to beat that price. I'm going to beat that price, and you're going to go back to them and then ask for them to give you that price off. So it's kind of like a waste of time, to be honest. So if you're going to get people into that, so I think a deposit is very important.
That's something that we do, and a lot of it too is that, the unfortunate part is that we've had situations many years ago where we've purchased equipment, and the client was under contract, but there hadn't been any monetary exchange, and then something changes and the organization doesn't want to move forward, and then we're stuck with possibly thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And so, that's also a way to protect us. But that also means that we're not having to put out all this extra money. So a lot of times that can even change the bottom line. We're not having to charge for as much in order to be able, to have to be able to float that, those kind of expenses. And so, I mean, that does kind of change the overall, perspective of the project.
And if you're going on a big project, you don't want to wing it and wait to the last minute to make preparations for things. You want to be ahead of the game. And so a lot of that is like, when is the gear going to arrive? Isn't that like the biggest question we have on a daily basis?
That's right.
When's the gear going to get here? Well, let me try to find out. But it is also important to have a date of when the gear is going to be there, so then you can line up your schedule to be able to have that install done. Because the last thing I'm sure Andrew wants is to have a tech on site that he's paying and the gear isn't going to show up on time.
Yeah, we actually, the way we schedule is that once all the gear arrives, then we would work with the client in order to schedule a start date. Because, especially kind of post-COVID, there's a lot of delays. And then with all the different changes in the economy with tariffs and things like that, sometimes things can be caught in ports, and there's, many times something can be in stock, and then by the time you place the order, it's no longer in stock, and now we're waiting. And that's not anything that we can really do on our end, except maybe look for something that's similar that may be in stock that we could help you kind of trade that out for. But in most situations, it's better for us to kind of stick to the design and just wait for those products to arrive, and then we would work with you to schedule that start date.
What would you say that the client needs to, the biggest thing a client needs to understand or be ready for the first day of their install?
I think that even starts back to the original conversation, is helping the client understand what to expect, and, being able to say, hey, we need to shut this room down. We need to shut the auditorium down or the worship center down. Sometimes it's for safety reasons. Sometimes it's so we can, we can make sure that we're able to work without certain delays. And so it's important to understand, and for even us to help you understand, what that looks like, how many days it's going to take, what all that looks like. We just did an install the other day where we had to actually cut some sheetrock out. And so, so we knew that going into the project. And so we were able to tell the client, hey, this is what we're going to have to do. So you're going to have to bring somebody in on the back end to help, reinstall that sheetrock into mud, into paint, because sometimes what we do does affect the room, and it can also affect, other trades that need to be able to come in to clean or to fix things or to paint, depending on what the overall scope of the project requires.
So wouldn't you say that your labor cost kind of varies on whether you have all the information or not? It says, you have to account for some uncertainties like cutting that drywall, right? So when it may seem like, hey, the integrator's cost is this, some things you have to understand is, and I don't think we talked about it enough, is that you have, and we don't have to go too far into it because it's quite simple, but you have insurance, you have overhead. Any business is going to need to make a profit. They have to have a place to store their stuff. So like, this is a full-on business that needs all of these things. And so when you're asking like, hey, that labor just doesn't seem right, well, there's a lot of things that go into that, and it's important to understand. On the first day of installation,
obviously it's going to depend on the project. But in most situations, we're going to be mobilizing that day. All the equipment's going to arrive on site that day. We're going to start pulling cable. and we're going to start installing the infrastructure, for whatever that project requires. And so there's going to be a lot of moving parts the first day. A lot of times you don't see a lot, but we're doing a lot. And so that the first day or two is really us getting on the job site, getting the infrastructure put in, and making sure that we've done everything correctly so all the big shiny things can start to go up.
How do clients measure progress during the installation process?
So we always try to touch base every day and let them know where we are. Obviously, there'll be things that they can see. They can see things happening. We have clients sometimes that will stop in multiple times throughout the day and see how things are going. So a lot of times there's a lot of verbal communication. With some clients, we do a end of day report. So we will send them an email at the end of every day and say, this is what we've accomplished. Maybe these are the issues that we ran into that we need to solve. And then, here are the things that that we still need to do. And that just depends on the client, kind of what their needs are. But in most situations, we're going to do a lot of verbal.
Once the system's installed, what else needs to happen to make the system work? I think a lot of people think that just plugging stuff in is the end goal. But this is, I believe, where the magic happens, right?
Yeah. So we're gonna work with the client to see what exactly they need, how they need things set up, what is it they're trying to achieve. And so we're going to take that information, and whether it means how we label a certain thing, how we set something up. And honestly, a lot of this even goes back to the design side, because if a client needs to come in and just hit a button and things work, we need to be able to design the system to do that. And so, that conversation even goes much further back, but we're able to understand what they need, how they need it to function, what they needed to use it for. And we're going to set the system up that way. And, to make sure that when they come in, they know which button to press, they know what needs to happen. Everything's going to be labeled. Everything's going to be set up the way that they need it to be. And, that will even kind of flow over into the training side. And, once we understand what they need and we set it up that way, then we're going to walk them through that process.
What would you say is probably the most common mistake customers make when working with us? That's a tough one. It's a big one.
That is a tough one.
I think if I could answer, I think it's trying to get too many people involved. I think you should go out, find someone that shares in the passion that we have, someone that, I hate to say it, but once you get into big companies, it gets a little convoluted. I feel like sometimes just another number. I can tell you that that's not how I treat my clients. I've become longtime friends with them. But I think the biggest mistake is that they don't find a partner.
Yeah, I think that, I think one thing that we push clients to do, to not only make sure they understand that we're a good fit, but we will actually show them and help them understand other projects that we've completed, and to make sure that they understand what it is that they're asking for. I think there's some situations we had a project last year that they had one person within the organization involved, and they had a vision, and then that person wasn't as involved anymore, and there was some other people that were involved, and their understanding and their vision were different. And so the system still moved forward with the original vision, because we had already ordered equipment and we had already done all those things. And so there's actually some frustration there from the client, because they said, well, we didn't understand that this is what this was. And so, I think having a clear, distinct vision, having a common point person within your organization to make sure that all the T's have been crossed and all the I's have been dotted as it pertains to what you need from us. And so, because if there's confusion as to within your own organization about what you need, we're just trying to hit a moving target. And so obviously with what things cost and what it takes to accomplish things effectively and with excellence, we want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And so I think that clear communication, understanding what it is that you're asking for, and if you don't know, that's okay. Like that's why we're here. But to make sure that we're all on the same page and we all understand what the vision is, and at the end of the day, what it is that we need to accomplish.
And it's great to accomplish something like this with a couple different teams. It's a great accomplishment, and I mean that's what we live for.
That's right.
If someone is considering an AVL project, what is the first step they should consider, do you think?
I think asking questions. I think if it's so let's say in a church situation, if it's, the pastor's going to head that, the senior pastor is going to head that up, talking to their worship team, talking to the worship pastor, what it is that we need. And in some situations, we're coming into a project where they already have things there, but they're having issues. So what are the issues? What are the pinch points? What are the limitations that we're running into? And how do we fix those moving forward? I think asking the right questions, doing their homework. We've had great conversations where somebody said, "Hey, we visited this organization and we loved that. How can we do that here?" And so for me, having a direction, having a kind of having an end goal to say, okay, we understand how that other organization does that. Maybe we did the project, maybe somebody else did, but we're able to help kind of walk you through that process of asking the right questions, and so we can answer those questions for you. So that way, when we get into the point of talking about numbers and talking about labor and talking about timelines, we're all on the same page.
I think when it comes to finding out, like, okay, I have this audio project, the first thing that came to my head was like, well, who do I know that might have already had a project done like this? And I would say word of mouth is the strongest. Andrew did this. Like I choose Andrew for projects because I trust him. Your friend is going to recommend somebody that they trust. And so it kind of just works that way. And I think that's where you find the true, genuine, and I think at the end of the day, it's just more like this whole scenario we're talking about could be very, very stressful. And what we're talking about are ways for people to make it not so stressful. Why do integrators charge this? Why do AVL companies do this? We're hoping that this explained a lot of that for you. Is there anything that you think we missed that you think is important?
I think, even kind of taking a step back, in some situations, we've just been asked to come into a role just to consult. Mm-hmm. So maybe the church maybe they do have some people that they've already kind of recognized as people that they trust, things like that for their project, but they just want kind of a third party opinion. In some situations, we've kind of been brought in as a consultant. So maybe we know going in that we may not be selling them a product, or we may not be actually doing the labor, but we can take our past experiences and projects and talents, within our team, and we can help direct them in the right direction. And so that's something too. In some situations, we've also worked on the other side of that, where we worked with a consultant. And so we are going to be the people that sell them the equipment. We are going to be the people that are, that will, come along after the sale to do the install, do training. And so I think there's a lot of avenues that you can take, but I think making sure you find somebody that you can trust, and somebody that has a track record. We kind of jokingly say that there's a lot of trunk slammers out there, and that's kind of a, it's kind of a joke, but there's some folks out there, they're not insured. They don't have workers' compensation. They don't have the the infrastructure within the business to be able to support you for the long haul. And so I think making sure that you're talking to somebody that can give you that support is extremely important. We've come behind lots of different companies. Sometimes they've been fantastic. We'll walk into an install where we're going to do some other part of the building, and the work that's there is phenomenal. And then we've walked into situations where churches were unsure of the direction to go, unsure of the questions to ask, and somebody came in and threw a couple things in and literally slammed the trunk and drove off. And sometimes those people don't answer the phone. And so I think finding somebody that is reputable, going back to what you said, word of mouth is extremely important. And that's why we take a lot of pride in what we do and how we do it. Because that word of mouth is very powerful. It's very powerful if you do a good job, and it's very powerful if you don't. And so, understanding that, we take a lot of pride in what we do. We're very selective of the employees that we have. We want to make sure that everybody represents what we do and to make sure that you're getting the same experience, whether it's I'm the lead on the install or it's somebody else. But I think asking the right questions, doing the homework, and then making sure that you partner with somebody that you trust.
In closing, I think the best advice that I can give anybody watching this episode is time. If you have a large project, you can't just expect to get it done next week. There's people that need to prepare things. You need to shop around. I hate to say shop around, but you need to find the person that's going to integrate, who's going to do all the stuff, find all the pieces before you start making plans. You can't just buy something and expect someone to be ready to install it for you next week. Another thing too is if you don't have an integrator involved or someone designing and you're just buying stuff, I hate to tell you, but you're really going to have a hard time finding someone to install that stuff because it may not be up to specs for the design for the room. I think a lot of people have, they have a big appetite, but they have a small budget. So I think in knowing that and going in with time, if it's something that you want and you don't have the money for it, then you have time to prepare for that as well, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So we would like to thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, by all means, put it in the comments below. We'll be open to answer any other further questions. And if there was something that we did miss and that you want us to discuss again at a later time, let us know. We'd be happy to talk more about it. Andrew, thanks for your time. I know it's very valuable.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad
I couldn't
to be
afford
here.
it myself.
No, it's been good.
It's good, man. It's good seeing you.
You too.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. Peace out.